What's going on, everybody? Welcome to February. What's on my deck? We're back in Florida. We've been moving back and forth between Florida, Texas, back to Florida, basically chasing around everything pre-spawn. Had a tournament early February in Okeechobee, finished 60 something out of 225. There was a lot of bed fishing to be had in that tournament, but not so much with our eyes, just fishing little flats and stuff where those fish had a little bit of clean water, a little bit of harder bottom, and they could move into those areas, but been mostly pre-spawn and attacking bigger, larger fish. It's been an awesome season for me so far. Caught my PB, a 10-pounder, caught 9s, we've caught 8s, 7s. It's been awesome. But one thing I've been doing differently is attacking bigger fish. That's the key to this off season. That's what we're looking for a lot when we're doing it. I'll just kick things off because I got a mess going over here. So you got to remember, I have been running in between Texas and Florida, specifically looking for bigger bass. I have been playing with a whole bunch of glide bait. Just got this one not that long ago. This is a 316 Workhorse. It's just a nice size for me to throw around. I'm throwing it on a G Loomis 966 SWBR swim bait rod. That's an IMX Pro. I have it on a 300 Shimano Tranx with straight 25-pound fluorocarbon, just straight. This is Seaguar Invizx fluorocarbon 25. I've been using a little owner clip on it. Don't know if I like it either way, but I've been forcing myself to throw this. I've been catching them from super shallow stuff out to even deep stuff using the forward sonar, wrapping. You'll see a lot of lead and tungsten little stickers and stuff that I can put on these baits to make them sink. But again, this is a big fish bait. It's a good pre-spawn, spawn, post-spawn. It shows me a lot of fish, but now I'm starting to understand these glide baits so much more better now with the addition to forward sonar. Just seeing how fish react around them, an awesome bait. And right here, obviously the 316 Workhorse, it is what you pay for. It's a badass bait. Next up, the jerk bait. Like we were just talking about, you're gonna see some of this stuff. I don't have any little tungsten tape on here or little lead strips, but I do have some lead wrapped around my front hook of this thing. This is a World Minnow, the Shimano World Minnow, the 115 SP suspended version. Yeah, awesome bait. Throw it around, especially around hydrilla, is when I really like this bait. A lot of times I'd maybe be using, you know, the deeper World Minnow or even a Vision 110 +1 +2 this time of year. But again, remember, I have been around grass. I've been trying to be around grass. Even when I was down in Texas, there was a lot of milfoil and the fish were shallower. So I was using this World Minnow to keep it up higher in the water column. Really liked it around trees that were sunken out in the water, the tips of them, like mesquite trees or cedar trees, whatever they were down in Texas. This bait, I could keep it up and work it through the branches and get those fish to kind of raise up out of there and chase it out. Whether or not they bit it or not, that's up to me to keep working. But a jerk bait will never not be on my deck. I'm pretty sure if I don't talk about it on a What's on My Deck, it's strictly because I just got sick of talking about it for that month. I'm throwing it on a G Loomis NRX Plus 842C MBR. It's a 7-foot medium action. And I'm using the Shimano Antares. It's got that clicker drag in it. You can hear it there on my mic. It's just something I like. When I hit them like that, I feel like I'm not going to snap off the line. I am using 12 and 15-pound tests right now on my jerk baits, but at the same time, if I'm back home for smallies, I'm going all the way down to 10 to do that. So that's my setup there for the jerk bait. Since we're sticking with pre-spawn theme and reaction baits, let's just roll right into this one. And this one's a beauty. This thing has been chewed every which way. A good buddy of mine, Gabe, hooked me up with some of these baits. It's just a cotton Cordell, I believe. Maybe a Bill Lewis, but I think it's a cotton Cordell. A little 1/2 ounce gold trap. It's a cheap number, but boy, does it get bit. I was using this in Okeechobee. I actually weighed one of my bigger bass on it. You can't reel a lipless trap too fast this time of year. You can also work it real slow. So it's just something I find myself picking up and throwing. Being I wasn't ripping it out of grass, I've been throwing this more around shallow timber and, you know, on places like Okeechobee where it was flooded out. You know, there just wasn't a lot of grass there. So I could get away with the 840C CBR rod. That's a crankbait rod. That's a G Loomis IMX Pro. I mean, it's a heavier cranking rod. I still use it for square bills a lot, but at the same time, it's phenomenal for throwing a lipless trap, especially when you don't have to rip it out of grass too often. Throwing it on a Shimano Bantam. This is an HG 7 speeds, pretty perfect and pretty quick, not too fast, but at the same time, when you really feel like, or when you get a bite, you want to really slow it down. Sometimes you want to find that stuff on the bottom, and I'm throwing on straight 16-pound Shimano Mastiff fluorocarbon on that Bantam. Awesome setup. Got to throw a trap anytime you're talking pre-spawn, anytime you're around grass. This one I swear is always on these early pre-spawns, and why not? It's a jackhammer. Jackhammers catch the heck out of them. This is a little 3/8 jobber that I was throwing. I don't throw 3/8 all that often. A lot of times I'm throwing a half or even a 3/4, as you know. In this case, real super shallow stuff. Even in Texas, obviously I was throwing it all around Florida. But even in Texas, I found that milfoil in just a couple feet of water, and really I'd have to throw it and just start reeling this thing back to the boat to keep it up and above it, but they would come out of it. That's the warmest water. It had a sand bottom. Those fish could sit there and just wait for spring to come, and they're in the right areas to where they're going to want to spawn. But definitely got us a big bite, several big bites in Texas. Little 3/8 jackhammer. I'm throwing a little reaction ovation, the little dipper on the back of it. I'm throwing the Loomis NRX Plus 883 C bladed jig rod. That's 7.4 medium heavy. I found it awesome. I was making super long casts, and I also kind of wanted to feel the wood and stuff like that. I was in Texas, and then I'm throwing this thing on straight 18-pound Shimano Mastiff Flourocarbon and a Shimano Metanium HG casting reel. So I'm not going to talk too much more about it. Jackhammers catch fish, but I will talk about this one. Here is another version of a chatterbait that I am throwing around. And one thing I started at Okeechobee that I saw and liked was a braid with almost a flipping stick on a big chatterbait rod, like throwing it in places that I would have only thrown a swim jig before, and it got me big bites. And what I liked about it is I had to swim it real slow. So this is the big blade chatterbait. I'm using the Zoom Z-Craw, the big one, black and blue on the back. It's got a lot of lift to this bait. Great around dirty water like what I was finding in Texas, and at the same time it's a bait you can move real slow through the water column, wakes underneath the water in that muddier conditions, or up super shallow. Those big females with the high water in Florida, they're up there hiding, and this is a big profile bait for a big fish, and I'm not afraid to throw it. I'm throwing on straight 50-pound Power Pro SSV2. I'm using a Shimano Bantam. This is a HG, another 7-speed, and I'm throwing a pretty decent rod. This is actually a great Florida stick, Texas stick. It's the Loomis NRX Plus 904C MBR rod. It's got a great taper to it, a fast action, awesome for throwing this bait and wenching stuff out of the big stuff. Just remember when you're throwing the big blade, it's got a lot of lift on it. You're looking for big bites with this bait. Definitely recommend it. Man, we got all the reaction baits out. This is one bait that I threw a lot in the 6-inch pattern. This is a Mega Bass Meg Draft. This is the harnessed version. I got some sweet ones that I've been playing around with, the new Bass Mafia ones. They're not harnessed. I've been throwing, you know, like a beast hook and stuff like that in, fishing a little bit more offshore, great in brush piles. But this is the king. Again, throw the 6-inch a lot. I stepped up to the big dog. You know, last year I just saw a lot of key anglers and key times getting big bites with this bait and the bigger bait, and I'm just not afraid to throw it no more, because you got to fish for what you're looking for, and you catch plenty of smaller fish to keep you going. I'm throwing it on a Loomis NRX Plus 904C MBR, same exact one we are just talking about. Great swim bait rod, all around versatile rod. I also use this out deep on ledges. And then I'm throwing it on the new, this is the Shimano Curado, the 200 HG. This is the M. It's got that 200 size spool. I like that because I can make super big casts. I know I use the Metanium and the Bantam a ton for my casting, even in Antares every now and then, but you will always see me with Curados, especially with this MGL spool now and the new M. It's the only reel in the lineup, the high-end reels, that has a 200 size spool, and that is still something I like, even with the chatterbait, anything that I'm throwing a long way. But again, Maggie, the Mag Draft's going to be an awesome bait, pre-spawn, post-spawn. It's going to get big bites. Let's get to a jig, the Outcast Tackle Stealth Fighter jig. Basically the second I got out of Florida, which I could have definitely thrown this on Okeechobee. I should have, the more I thought about it. It's just literally my go-to bait, one of my most confident largemouth baits out there. This one I believe was the 1/2 ounce, the last one I put on. Yep, a 1/2 ounce, black and blue. I'm using a little Carl's bait. It's also a Bass Pro bait. A lot of people make this. It's basically a Zoom trailer. I just like this one because it goes all the way up the shank of the hook. It's just something that I've always liked, but it's still got that like Zoom standard chunk tail on it, which I've always said, and I probably won't ever change. Pre-spawn, I like that. Not a lot of action to my bait. Come post-spawn, I like to put something that's got a lot more kick to it, a lot more action. But right now, that's the one I'm throwing. I am using straight 20-pound Shimano Mastiff Flourocarbon. I'm throwing this on a Loomis NRX Plus 894C jig worm rod, probably the finest jig pitching rod out there at 7, and I'm using a Shimano Metanium XG. Awesome setup. That'll be on my deck literally the rest of the year, always, from down here, Texas, up to Florida and everything in between. I'll be flipping around an Outcast Stealth Fighter jig. Before we get to the spinning rod, I said it is bed season, but I haven't been seeing a whole lot of beds. In fact, with the high water in Florida, I've been doing more bed fishing off of my live scope, LVS 34, than I have with my eyes by far. At the same time, I'm still pitching to holes and stuff that I think those fish are going to be there, or when I see them on the forward sonar, the old standbys are going to get them every time. I'm using a 5/16 ounce Woo tungsten weight. This is a owner ringed hook. VMC also makes it. Gamakatsu also makes it. This owner one has not come out yet. They're the prototypes for the extra wide gap ringed hook. Hopefully I have an update on when that comes out. I'm using a Zoom Speed Craw. That's Tilapia Magic. That's just an old school one. It's my first flip to see how easy a fish is to bite when they're on a bed. It's also the bait that I'm going to choose to pitch around into holes or where places I think that a bass would be bedding. And at the same time, I might go with a white beaver or something like that as a backup once I can't get them to bite this, or I'll get them revved up on the white bait, then I'll throw this one in. I'm using my favorite rod for this. It's a NRX Plus 854C jig worm rod. That's 714 power, heavy action. Again, with the Shimano Metanium XG, and I'm using straight 18-pound Shimano Mastiff Flourocarbon. Just a good old Texas rig. Again, I'm pitching around as a Texas rig. I'm also using it as a bed bait. Last but not least, for February, you know I had to bring the spinning pole out. I just always have one now. With forward-facing sonar, it's crazy. At Okeechobee, I think most of the field that cast checks and did well, did it with a spinning rod in their hand. I know I definitely was throwing a spinning around a lot. Senkos, wacky rigs, Nico rigs, and drop shots, of course. This is my good old favorite, Loomis NRX Plus 872S jig worm rod. That's 7.3 medium. It has a fast tip on it and a ton of backbone. This is the rod. I love this thing for any largemouth drop shot, and as I was doing in a lot of brush piles, trees, and even pitching to bedfish that I saw on my forward sonar. I've caught some nice fish using this little robo worm. Why not? It's still the OG king, I think, for little tiny worms. This one's Margarita Mutilator Fat. I'm using an owner cover shot, a 2-aught owner cover shot hook, and a 3/8 ounce Woo tungsten Invizx chip cylinder weight. And the Shimano Xsense 4000 with straight 10-pound Power Pro SSV2 going to a straight 12-pound Shimano Mastiff Flourocarbon leader. Again, pitching that in brush piles, pitching it in trees, fish that I see on forward sonar, and definitely ones on beds. That is my setup. My buddy's ready to go fishing. A lot less crying as he gets older. He knows the game plan. So now it's time we're gonna go bassing. March is gonna be an awesome what's on my deck. I got some stuff in this boat that I really wish I could talk about that I've been actually driving my wife Bree crazy with because I can never have it out on the deck. I'm hoping to be able to debut some of that in March. So definitely follow my channel, Josh Douglas Fishing. More stuff coming. We got Sandy Cooper Bassmaster Open coming up. Looking to have a big event there. Definitely love that factory. Big fish will come across the stage. And then after that, we get to go home. We'll be at the Bassmaster Classic. Shields will have a booth at Bassmaster Classic. I'll be there. Hercules Tires are going to be there again for their 2nd year. I'll definitely be around there. Shimano's got Shimano G Loomis booth. That's going to be a good time. TH Marine, Bass Mafia, you name it. I'm going to be there representing them at the show. Stop on by in Tulsa. Grand Lake is where it's at. And again, follow this channel. We got lots of good stuff coming this year. And I do believe, actually I know for a fact, that we have a really cool YouTube series coming out on smallmouth fishing this summer. So please, again, I'm going to say it again, follow this channel, Josh Douglas Fishing. Leave me comments if you have questions on any of this stuff or why I choose what I use, why I'm not using something else. Leave them down there, them questions in the comments. I will get to replying to them as you ask them. So for now, tight lines. We're back in Florida. We got about another week of big fish, and then we're heading up to Santee Cooper. Tight lines. We'll see you in March.